Hello everyone, in this video I'll be ranking the best specializations in Borderlands 4 on a tier list. Now I have all the characters at level 50 in Ultimate Vault Hunter 5 and I've tried out all the different builds, so we break down the best specializations here, starting off with the nodes and the passive skills. The first one we have is a Survivor. This gives you maximum health and maximum shields. This is not a bad one to engage with. I don't think it's the absolute best of the capstones we'll be going with here, so I will just throw this one into the A tier. I'm going to be quick with these first ones because they are kind of just basic passives. This one gives ordnance cooldown rate, which isn't really that amazing. It's not going to go very high. Give a reference with like a 30% there. This one's like B tier. Ordinances are great, but we have other ways to be able to replenish them. And the Brute next, gun damage. Obviously, gun damage is one of the most powerful things, and gun damage actually with some of these can apply. So you see here, action skill damage now benefits from the increases to gun damage. So if we have a plus 30% there, that's 15% extra on our action skill, or you can add that to your melee damage. And yeah, this becomes pretty crazy overall. So yeah, Brute is pretty good. S tier for the pick there. Next is the Killer. This gives increased critical hit damage and status effect damage. This is nice, but I don't think it's as good as even getting a bit more of the others. So I'll put it in the A tier there just because health is good, but I think the extra damage from critical hits, since you're likely going to be getting mostly critical hits in the end game, is better. Now, the Sharpshooter is nice too. This gives you increased reload speed and accuracy, but I don't think this is like the most essential one. So this one's also going to go into the B tier, probably a bit above ordinances. And then for the Daredevil, action skill cooldown rate, which is much better than ordnance cooldown rate. These are both at the same percentage there. So this one is obviously a little bit better. We're putting that into the A tier. And then finally, we got the Runner, which is going to increase your movement speed and melee damage. Now, be mindful, it doesn't actually increase your movement speed that much, but anything is nice. And the melee bonuses is pretty good on a melee build, but outside of like playing AIAmAGun, you're not going to really want to do melee that much. There's a few builds that work, but I'll have to put this one into the B tier. So this is what we're sitting at here for the capstones. But getting into the actual good stuff, we're going to be going over these skills here because these actually provide massive benefits. So the first one we'll be going over is the Now with Caffeine, which reduces your action skill cooldown. The reason I'm picking this one first is I think that this is the absolute best. The reason being is with specific gear, which is pretty easy to farm, the triple bypass has 3 charges. There's other rep kits that work because with this, there's ones that give you increased cooldown and all that, but this has 3 charges and a 30% chance to replenish a charge on kill. So basically you can continually keep spamming this and you get your action skill back really quickly. This is great on characters like Rafa. It's actually great on anyone because everyone benefits from having their action skill because there's oftentimes points in their skill tree that will boost their abilities when they're in like their overdrive for Rafa, for example. So yeah, with a triple bypass, this becomes crazy. Even better if you have the amp version because that can boost up the overall damage quite a bit. But even without the triple bypass, this is still probably the best. So I'm gonna have to say Now with Caffeine is top of the S tier. This is just an absolutely crazy perk. Getting that action cooldown is absolutely nuts. So works for everyone. It's really, really strong. And then I'll do the rest of them in order just because I want to talk about that one. It's very powerful. Next up is the sturdy stuff. So fight for your life, lasts longer when you're not moving, and second winds fully restore the Vault Hunter's health. Second winds will restore your shield, which is great, but there's so many lifesteal builds that this is almost not even that great. It gives you 50% increased fight for your life when not moving, and the health restoration, that's cool and all, but I actually think this is one of the worst ones. There's no real way to make this useful on your builds. So I'm actually going to throw this one into the D tier. I think there's many better options than sturdy stuff. Like next, we got the Bullets Are Scared of Me. This is even the best one in the tree here. So the Vault Hunter gains increased damage reduction based on the fullness of their health or shield, whichever has the higher maximum capacity. So this can deplete as your shield goes down. This can actually be decent in, I've tried it in Ultimate Vault Hunter 5 where sometimes enemies will like one-shot you. Getting 30% damage reduction on that first hit before your health goes down and you lose that extra reduction can be nice. But I don't actually think that's good, in all honesty. 30% damage reduction is useful, but again, you're going to be losing your health pretty quickly. It can pair well with certain items like the Timekeeper's new shield. This shield here actually reduces your shield to 0 and gives you 33% damage reduction and increased maximum health and health regeneration. So this can actually work pretty well if you're utilizing that strategy because you're going to take one hit and your health will drop quite a bit, but you still have a bit of damage reduction and your shield gives you damage reduction. So I'd have to say this one's probably like C, maybe B. I might put it in the B. It's hard to say. I'm almost set in the B tier just because there could be some instances where this damage reduction is actually really nice, especially in Ultimate Vault Hunter 5 when everything can pretty much one-shot you. You may get lucky with this 30% damage reduction. I have a few times, but I actually think this one's a little bit better. The best defense is a good offense, and that's what the best defense here is all about. So the Vault Hunter gains increased damage dealt based on the capacity of their health or shield, and this is best with like a Vex build that you can keep your health full and keep your shields up. But it's good on anyone, because if your shields are full, you're likely going to have full health, and if not, you have a rep kit, which will likely restore your now with caffeine. So this damage dealt 30% increase is actually pretty crazy. I want to put this one up into the of high A tier. We'll reevaluate. I think this is a high A tier pick, potential S tier, just because 30% damage is so good. But I want to try and keep this balance to the B tier as much as possible. And I don't want to throw too much into the S tier because there is others that are really good. And next up, we have the Tripwire. Reduce ordnance cooldown whenever action skill is activated. Unlike the other one, which reduces your action skill when a rep kit is used, you're not going to activate your action skill that much. This one is probably the worst in the game. I'm going to put that at the bottom of the D tier. It's just, there's no real instance where you want to have your grenade come back that quickly. I'm sure there's some builds that use heavy ordinances, which can be nice, but you're not going to get your action skill back more than like once per minute. So this 25% reduction in a grenade is not great. Ordnance damage now increases, or benefits from increases to gun damage. This one actually has some usage, especially if you're going to be using like an ordnance build. I know there's AIAmAGun heavy ordnance builds that are actually pretty strong, because this will add the additional damage from gun damage to your abilities. Now, I've gotten some questions about that in the past. So if you have an enhancement, let's say that increases gun damage by 25%, this is what matters. So this will actually add that damage onto it. So it can be pretty decent. If you get a 25% increase in gun damage, that means 12.5% increase to ordnance damage. I know some people really like the ordnance builds, so I'm going to toss this one in bone and throw it into the B tier, because I do think it's not that bad. Actually may move the Bulger Scared Me down to C tier, just because that damage reduction is nice, but it's almost better just push out more damage. So yeah, that's full spectrum there. 50% increased gun damage, pretty good to put it in the B tier, just because there's some ordnance builds that work really well with this. Next was the Fragmentation Payload, which the ordnance gains a chance to critically hit enemies. And this one is also really good. If you're going to use both the ordinances, you may as well put them both together, because being able to critically hit is really nice. And this gives a plus 50% additional critical hit damage. So yeah, if you're using a heavy ordnance like the machine guns, this could be pretty good. I'm going to throw this one into the B tier as well. I think that's a pretty decent 1-2 punch. If you're doing an ordnance build, the reason it's only going to B tier, not higher, is if you're not doing an ordnance build, you're never going to pick these. So I'm just going to keep it balanced to the B tier there. And next up is Wanted, Lead or Alive. So when entering Fight for Your Life, all guns are automatically reloaded, and the Vault Hunter gains increased fire rate. So 25% fire rate while in Fight for Your Life. Much like the sturdy stuff, you don't want to be in Fight for Your Life that often. I think this is another D tier. It's just not good. You're much better off with really any other pick here, just because this increased fire rate's cool. It's basically 25% more damage. But are you really in Fight for Your Life that much that you want to dedicate your entire pick to it? I don't think so. Especially when there's better ones down here. So CQC, Close Quarter Combat. Melee damage grants the Vault Hunter increased fire rate for a duration. 8 seconds plus 30% fire rate. Where this actually works out really well is melee damage is really easy to get if you're playing as IAmAGun, because his Forge drones will deal melee damage. Now, I haven't noticed them actually trigger this from my testing, but there's other ways that, just a side note, IAmAGun skill tree has some abilities that activate kill skills, and his Forge drones can activate those too, but it won't actually activate this. However, melee damage is pretty easy on IAmAGun, especially if you're using the Forge Fist. You can go in and punch. This increases your damage. It's not bad. Only really use that if you're going to build around melee. Otherwise, you're way better off doing anything else. So I'm going to throw it in the B tier just because that is a nice, it's effectively like a 30% damage boost because you're going to be shooting faster, but not exactly a 30% factoring in reloads. It's just a nice boost to your overall damage if you're going to be doing a melee and maybe a shotgun or something like that build. With the bod shotgun in particular that shoots really quickly, it could be nice. Next up, we have Riddle You This. Whenever the Vault Hunter deals gun damage, gain a stack of Riddle You This, increasing gun damage by 1% per stack. Stacks are lost if a new stack has not been gained for a duration. This becomes really crazy because there's some guns that shoot literally 50 bullets per like a few seconds. 50 bullets can give you plus 50% damage. This is absolutely crazy. Riddle You This is by far one of the best in this game. In most instances, it's probably going to be better than Now with Caffeine. I'm putting this one at the very top of the S tier. Now, it's just crazy. 50% bonus damage just for firing your gun. You're going to fire your gun anyways. There's only one build that I can think of that, or a couple builds that wouldn't really benefit from this. And they would be the builds that focus on using heavy ordinances. But even so, you could get extra damage off on them. And if you're going to utilize like the chuck weapon, which doesn't really shoot, you just throw the gun, it wouldn't actually trigger off of this. So those are the only two that I can think of that won't utilize this. This is just one of the best in the game by far. Next into the killer tree, we have the Contamination. Critical hits grant increased status effect application chance, 10% per stack. You can have 10 stacks. So every critical hit, you have a higher chance of getting status effects applied to the enemy. I think this actually has some merit. There's a few builds that revolve around applying statuses. This won't be utilized that much outside of those builds, but getting a 100% chance of getting a status effect, especially on some that status effects are so deadly. And even like there's some guns that have a shock that does like 20k damage per second. Shock has some of the shortest status effect times, like they're really quick, but they deal a ton of damage. Being able to constantly apply them with critical hits is actually pretty crazy. And I think the Contamination should go into the A tier just because that's such a powerful ability. Getting that extra status effect application chance on specific builds, and a lot of builds actually do use status effects and could benefit from this. So I'm going to put that up into the A tier for sure. This one here on the other side is not that great. So enemies take increased damage for each status effect applied to them. 1% extra damage. That's cool. 1% extra damage or 1% per single bullet fired. It's not, there's no comparison here. There's just better options. This could mean increased, I mean, if you have this on and you're playing with friends, this could be nice. I'm still just going to put this in the C tier. I feel like this isn't that good unless there's something that's I'm missing. There's a way to apply a ton of status effect really quickly. I just don't see it being better than some of the others on this list. And Overkill, kill skill. Killing an enemy with a critical hit will cause them to explode, dealing skill damage of 50% of the initial hit. This can be pretty good, but from my testing, the critical hit, unless you're using a gun damage that's got insane amounts of damage, and even a sniper rifle is not going to do a whole lot in Ultimate Vault Hunter 5, but in regular modes, that explosion's nice. But this explosion's not that large. It's actually a really small radius. That's my biggest problem with this. I like the idea of it, but I don't think it's a very well utilized one. Like I could say like top of the C tier. I'll put it in the top of the C tier. It's just a little bit lackluster. It could be B tier potentially, but its damage is never going to be like, if anyone can get some good usage out of this, please let me know. I just found, despite it sounding great, it wasn't really that great in practice because the area of effect was not that large. Next up, we got the down but not out. During Fight for Your Life, the Vault Hunter can now aim down the sights and does not get any accuracy penalties. Kind of the same thing with the other Fight for Your Life abilities here. Why? This going into the D tier is not good. Next up, though, we got the In the Zone. When aiming, the Vault Hunter gains increased gun damage and critical hit damage per second. Bonuses are lost after 2 seconds of not aiming. If you like aiming down sights, this is great because you can get a 25% bonus gun damage and a 25% bonus critical hit damage. This is good, but again, you do need to have your sights aimed down at all times to get the most benefit. So for that, I might actually just still put this in the C tier. There's a lot of builds that revolve around aiming down your sights to get extra shock damage and things like that. So Rafa has one, and I think most Vault Hunters do have a benefit from taking this. Unless you're using like a shotgun that you don't want to aim down sights with. I personally don't aim down sights, so I don't like this as much. I'd put it personally in the B tier myself, but I know that there's a lot of ways that you can utilize that extra 25% gun damage. And gun damage just stack up and add to the others here too. Next, we got OneShot, OneKill. This is another one that I'm not sure how well it really does in actual combat. So kill skill, your excess damage will be stored and added to your next gunshot. This is a kind of same concept as the Overkill, which whenever you kill an enemy with a critical hit, it does an explosion, where it sounds good, like getting that extra damage. But let's say an enemy had 100 health points and you did 110 health to it. You get that extra 10% damage on an enemy. And yeah, it can only store one extra. It can only store one, and then your next shot uses that up. It's good, but not really that amazing. I'm just going to set this into the B tier. From my testing, I've seen there be better skills. So yeah. Next, I guess we have the now with Caffeine, S tier easily. IAmAGun. This one's actually really good. So action skill damage now benefits from increases to gun damage. Why is that so crazy? As mentioned, there's enhancements that will give you increased gun damage. There's a lot of ways to get increased gun damage. And your action skills are oftentimes pretty heavy in terms of their damage. So getting additional increases, like if you get a 50% increase to your gun damage, that's 25% increase to your action skill damage, which is really good. I want to set this one up. I want to say, I'm going to throw in the S tier. Reason being I'm going to throw in the S tier is because there's so many builds that can actually benefit from action skill damage. The most notable one coming to mind is Harlow's Neutron Capture. When she uses her action skill, she gets 4% of the total action skill damage back onto her gun. This becomes crazy because whenever you attack with a fast fire rate gun, it takes 4% of the maximum or the total damage that you dealt with your action skill and then spreads that onto every single bullet, making the damage insane. So any boost to the action skill in Harlow becomes even crazier. And really, anyone can benefit from increases to their overall damage from the action skill. To be honest, every character has a good action skill. So, yeah, this is a pretty effective one. And then a honed mind. This is another one that's A tier, I would say. Action skills now get increased critical hit chance, or they have a chance to critically hit 5% and increase critical hit damage. This one's actually pretty good. I'm going to say this one's an A tier pick, potentially. Yeah, we'll throw it somewhere around there. I think that that's nice. Getting that extra critical hit chance is pretty effective in overall damage output. And finally, we got ourselves the last runner skill tree with bare arms. Melee damage now benefits from increases to gun damage. This one's good. There's actually a few grenades, like the slippery grenade, the fish grenade that you throw does melee damage. So any obviously bonuses to melee damage are nice. Melee builds in Borderlands just kind of suck. I'm going to be honest. Just because there's so many enemies that have guns that are shooting at you, it's fun to play as a melee build, but they aren't that great. They have been buffing them, but again, they're not good. So I might just put this one into the B tier. It's nice getting that extra damage onto your melee, but you're almost better with action skill damage. There's some action skills that are actually melee and action skill damage, so you're probably better off with using the melee for those ones, but I found that the action skill most times will be better, just that melee is so weak in this game. And next up is the bullet train. This one's actually really good. It just gives you a 15% gun damage while walking, and you can hip fire while sprinting, and you're going to do more damage the faster you're moving. I'm always moving around, so this one is one that's really good in just general use situations. If you don't know what to use obviously now with Caffeine and Riddle You This for the extra gun damage. This will give you an extra 15% gun damage. That's not bad, and you can hip fire while sprinting. So yeah, this is good for mobility, and Borderlands is a game where you want to have a lot of mobility. So yeah, I'm going to throw the bullet train into the, I want to say, yeah, A tier here. It is really nice. Yeah, it's good. It's tough to compare them because I'm even thinking like In the Zone was also in the A tier, but this is a really good one too. So, and finally, we got the Groundbreaker. Now, this one is, again, another one that's specific to melee kind of build. So non-melee attack damage and slam damage are stored. Melee attacks and slam deal bonus kinetic melee damage based on the stored damage and consume it. Stored damage 20% and stored damage duration is 5 seconds. So this can actually be pretty crazy. I'm pretty sure this is a little bit bugged. On certain builds, this is really nice. Like Harlow gets some really good usage out of this. Not Rafa, but Amon gets some really good usage out of it. But this is only if you're going to do kind of like a slam kind of build, a melee slam build. Otherwise, you're going to use anything else and it'll be much better. So yeah, I'm going to pull this one throw it into the B tier here. I think it's good, but there's better options out there. So I guess to break it down for you guys, that's the tier list there. I kept the action or the passives at the end there, but the best choices are honestly going with the now with Caffeine. This is hard. It's hard to beat this. Getting a 75% increase, 75% of your action skill duration back with a triple bypass is nuts. And also Riddle You This. This is the best one in the game for obvious reasons. 50% gun damage is crazy. If you have a fast firing gun, you get that 50% damage insanely quick. If you're in a combat encounter, you're never going to lose this because you're likely going to damage an enemy at least once every 60 seconds. So yeah, this is worth taking for sure. And IAmAGun. I put this one in the S tier as well. I think it's really effective just for the increased action skill damage. As mentioned with neutron capture from Harlow, any damage that's added to the action skill is then later added to her gun. So this is kind of like triple dipping into your own abilities here. It becomes pretty crazy. The best defense, 30% damage when your health is full. Great on lifesteal Vex. Also, critical hits have status effect application chance. I could move this one to B tier potentially, but I do think that it's nice to be able to get the status application on guaranteed damage, which is really great. We also have a honed mind, action skill, critical hit chance. The bullet train in the A tier as well, being able to deal additional damage while you're moving. And then we have ourselves finally the In the Zone, increased damage when you're aiming. So there it is. That is the tier list of the best specializations in Borderlands 4. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know your favorite specialization as well. I have a bunch of other Borderlands 4 content, so if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, checking out some of my other builds and guides for Borderlands 4. And also, let me know in the comments what type of Borderlands 4 content you'd like to see next. Hope you have a great day, and we'll catch you all in the next video.